I'm gonna go out and shovel and,
I'm on now.
oh,
Tim O'Connell,
Here.
Sharon Kelly.
Here.
Tracy DeBonk. Here. Doug Rowdy,
Here.
Pamela Garvey,
Here.
and Justin Wood.
Here. All
And
right.
everybody here today.
Cool. Approval of the agenda.
Chair, I would like to, and I don't know if this is actually a motion or a request, but move our item 17 up between item 12 and 13 so we can have a closed session to address some questions.
All right. And also 8 and 10 will be blocked out.
What does that mean? You're not doing it?
We're not doing those two.
Okay.
We're doing the annual report for forestry, but not the
The
15.
replacement and the farmland preservation update, those two are dropped.
Okay.
So the motion to approve the agendas with those three changes as of now, if that's all
I'll
right.
second it.
Okay, and Sharon seconded. All right. All those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Who opposed?
Delayed, yeah.
Oh, it was just delayed. Okay. Approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second
Anybody see any changes or anything? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Doug. We're going too fast. Is there any public comment?
So make one.
Okay, go ahead,
But come up here.
please. State your name, because there's people online might not know you.
Yeah, my name's Chris Nelson, live in Milltown Township. And obviously I've been following this and I've had multiple discussions with staff. I've talked to most of them. You know, and all I can say is I'm just still very disappointed in the process. And I think back of all the years that we've been dealing with zoning, or I have been 35 years. Conversation I had yesterday with a young landscaper in Amory, he told me that he called up and tried to get a permit again for something that he got before on some rocks and a rock by a boathouse. Wasn't my job, but we were talking about it. He goes, yeah, I just got told we can't issue those permits anymore. And I said, well, that's what I've been talking about for a year, that the process seems to be broken. And I think back on when Vince was administrator, and even if you go back to Dana Fry, and you go back to Jason and Bob, and you go back to the previous administration, and even the previous corporation council, I don't believe we would be here today. I truly do not. There was always a way to connect with the public. There was always, as the zoning administrator would always reach out and say, hey, here's things we're having problems with. You guys have had lots of advisory committees. You've engaged the public. And at the last meeting, you engaged the public. And virtually nothing that got talked about was ever even put in. None of the landscapers were reached out to. I've had calls this week. And there is something broken here. And I think a lot of it is lack of experience. Everyone sitting over here are nice people. You know, I had a meeting with Sarah the other day, and Mo of Norby was the one that gave me the date and time to be there. And Mo never even called me and said, I'm not going to make it, never showed up. And that's how we feel as the public. And ultimately, it lands on public officials. Elected officials have to ask the hard questions to Corporation Council and to the people to say, are we really going to flip everything we've been doing in this county over because one person is talking to one new person at the DNR? I feel like there should be a better process. And again, we have a brand new ordinance here. Again, this is like the 4th or 5th revision. Just got it on the agenda the other day, and it's different than what it was before again. And you guys said we would go line by line when you guys got to a draft, and that you would ask staff to identify every word that got changed. Because you change a word over here, and this is the problem with inexperience. You change a word over here, it affects 5 things over on this side of the room. And that's what's happening. And I'm not going to dig into anything else today, but I just hopefully you guys can figure out a way to make this process better for all of us. Thanks.
All right, thank you. What else? Fran, are you on? Fran she had called earlier and wanted to make, is she here or not here?
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Yeah.
Fran, you're gonna have to unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll start over briefly. I think it's important to have a legally defensible ordinance that is certified by the DNR. I don't understand why we would not want to have an ordinance that's certified by the DNR. I think it's important we support our staff. They're just trying to do their jobs. What may or may not have happened in the past, may no longer be relevant. I think it's important that we move forward and make the process clear to everybody involved.
That it?
Yep, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other supervisors or anyone else on there that? I didn't receive any calls from anyone else or anything. All right, then. Let's move on. It's a NORTAC update. How about that one?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
We discussed this yesterday in ATV, UTV, and snowmobile, and Rod Polk was there, and Tony Nowak was there, and the understanding is possibly that NORTAC discussion should be at the Public Safety and Works meetings. And Doug Johnson couldn't make it the last time because he drives school bus for Amory, and of course that's closed today. But that was the update from yesterday, that you can talk to Shaban and see where that should go, or Mo, and find out, or the final decision. That's all I have.
Okay.
For this meeting, Mr. Chair, Tony can give an update for NORTAC. He attends those meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, let's have it. We'll have it. Then it could probably go to either or both.
Great.
If we still want it on both committee meetings.
Okay, so the last NORTAC meeting, that was January 30th in Spooner. I attended along with Doug Johnson and Officer Jeff Hahn, our new rec officer. We're at that meeting. A couple of things that came out of that meeting, the ORV Council. So that's the state council that oversees the off-road vehicle grant program. So that's ATVs, UTV trails. They had some unspent grant funds and they were looking to reallocate those to additional projects. And then on the snowmobile end of things, the Snowmobile Rec Council, they are continuing to see funding shortfalls since ice storms of 22. So really prioritizing their grant projects as they come in, focusing on bridge projects. And because of those funding shortfalls, some of that falls back to the fact that because of low snow year, we've had lower numbers of snowmobile registrations, lower numbers of trail passes being purchased. So that provides a smaller pot of money for all the grant projects that are coming in. So right now the grant requests are much higher than what the revenue is. So that council is looking at fee increases to registrations as well as trail passes to help try to make some of that up. So I think that's about all I have from the NORTAC meeting.
All right. Any questions? Anyone? No. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
The brief's gone. Number 9.
Me.
That is you. Should be.
Yeah, we'll just be doing the annual report. So, good morning. We'll just, yeah, we can essentially go to the second page right off that. Just kind of a snapshot of the county forest activity this last year, what we accomplished. I don't know if it's up there too, but yeah, county forest timber sale total revenue were $192,561 and we ended up closing out 4 timber sales. So essentially when we close them, that means we submitted to the state of Wisconsin that they were complete in 2024. We got 5 timber sales established. And those will be sales that were setting up or selling this spring. Oh, sorry. That's what we sold last spring. Sorry about that. We ended up selling 317 acres for about 500,000 board feet and 7,000 tons. And then we finished or completed 5 timber sales that we'll be selling this spring. So let's see here. Lost my place. Nope, that was all what we sold. Sorry. So we'll go to the next bullet. We completed 6 timber sales, 2024, 385 acres. We had an appraisal at just over 255,000. So we'll be selling that at that May date this year. So we'll probably send out advertisements in about 2 weeks, and we'll advertise about a month and a half. And then we'll set the bid opening a day before or 2 days before the committee meeting in May. And then, you know, the timber sale bids will just be approved by you as long as they meet all the requirements to work in the county forest. So, so that'll be going out in the newspaper shortly. Kind of the total estimated timber sales as of 1/1, it's a little less now, but 303,000 and some change over 9 different timber sales. Paul and I completed 2,193 acres of forest inventory. So that's essentially just updating our individual stands, ages, etc. We planted 95 acres. Well, a little bit of it was replant, but 71,200 trees. So most of it, about 55,000 red pine, 16,000 jack pine. So we completed that in 2024 in the spring. Let's see, 63 acres of trees were bud capped. So we did a bud cap contract so the deer don't browse our freshly planted pine. So it didn't stop them too much on our jack pine. They started eating them about 3 weeks ago. So it deterred them enough though. So we should be okay. But they like needles. We completed 29 acres of mechanical hand wreaths on a red and jack pine planted site, about 7-8 years old. Removed all the hardwoods around the pine. We completed 22 acres utilizing the wildlife habitat aid money. And then we also utilized the DNR fire staff to do the dozer scarification. So be watching that, make sure the regeneration's good next few years. Completed red and jack pine plantation survival surveys on 510 acres, stuff that's been planted since 2017. Did have our gas tax had some questions from the DOT, so brought a few miles up to spec based on them looking at a couple. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On that previous bullet, on the red and jack pine survival surveys,
Yep.
what was the results of those surveys? Did they show that
yeah,
a good portion are doing well, or?
yeah, they tell us mortality more than anything. Yeah, so we know what we planted. So say we had 50,000 trees on that site. We know the amount of trees per acre that was planted, and it's through 6 years later we document that in our WISFRS inventory system. So we talk to each other. Paul and I talk to each other, or talk to the future foresters of what our survivals are during that. So yeah, I would say we always run at 75% survivability, sometimes 50% in the last few years.
Yeah, after 5 years, first year survival is usually 90% or better. And then through attrition until they get above the deer, we lose. Yeah, most of them come out 75, 80%. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I would say we plant slightly over, you know, what your optimal growing is, right? We do row thinnings at 30 years old, or do something, if we have too much competition, we find a way to thin it out to appropriate trees per acre in the future. But we kind of, to get that establishment to actually have a good forest in the future, we slightly overplant, just knowing that deer are gonna come chew on them.
Thank you.
This is why we did a bud cap contract too. We're starting to see a uptick in deer numbers in Sterling, so they're hungry. And one of the biggest crop damage reports this year was a half mile from where we planted 50,000 trees. So they're utilizing the county forest as bedding and forest browse, but they also have a little bit of agriculture right there, so it's kind of the perfect storm. Costs money to get trees established, for sure.
Yeah.
And so we'll do probably 2 years, maybe at least 1 more year bud capping on those. But we'll be starting it all over again, because we'll be just trenching about 80 acres this year, and then planting. I just ordered the trees about a month ago. We'll have another 70,000 coming, so they'll be ready for next spring.
Thank you.
Let's see here. So yeah, it's got some gas tax. Essentially had to widen our road specs to meet the low use forest gas tax specs. So wasn't too bad, because it's sand country. We just had to dose and widen out our roads. So do some brushing. Paul and I built a 1/4 acre deer fence. There was a grant from Mark Gossman he had that we bought a bunch of materials for, and we actually put a deer exclosure so they can't get in on the jack pine site that we just planted this spring. That should tell us, or be able to kind of show us, what deer do to our trees. So there was no browse within that fence. So I'm kind of interested to see how that turns out the next few years. So secured a $36,000 grant and some change for a large stream crossing on county forest, town of McKinley. Currently working on that right now. We're going to use Karsten and Land and Water too to do the engineering designs for that and help with the permits with the DNR. So we're just starting that now. Secured a $5,000 urban forestry grant for Apple River Park. That is a county forest special use property. So to help with that, we just did some tree dropping about a week ago in there. So and then the last one on there is the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant that we applied for that acquisition in town of Lorraine. That money did come in, and I did get invoiced to pay back the loan, that amount that came in. So it was only a couple $100. The actuals were only a couple $100 less than that grant approval amount. So it was pretty close. We'll jump over to the financial report. So total, it's going to see the state aid. That's forest admin grant and some miscellaneous grant revenues that came to the county forest. Total timber sales stumpage, as I mentioned before, and the firewood and Christmas trees and some other miscellaneous revenues. So the total revenues are $253,667.21. And then kind of see the breakdown of expenses. Total operating expenses, $138,340.48. And the back just kind of shows an additional expenses, the amount that was paid out to the towns. I know we discussed what we were sending to them this year, and that was just over $57,000 to the townships from timber sale revenue. So that's it. Is there any questions?
One other general question. A lot of what's discussed is, as far as red and jack pines. Is that specific? I mean, do we ever focus on hardwoods, or is it the red and jack pine due to the soil type and the ability to, harvest it and whatnot, or kind of is there times where we work on hardwoods at all or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. So town of Sterling is glacial out west sands. So that's where we're doing all of our jack and red pine. Essentially our oak wilt is such a problem there that oak is not our primary objective. If anything, we try to either naturally harvest to convert to popple or aspen, or convert to red maple, and where we can't convert and we have a high oak oak reality, we'll try to convert to red pine and jack pine.
Okay.
Which is a native species to Wisconsin. And our jack pine over the years is actually declining on our county forest. So we're trying to still supplement that. Red pine is obviously has some economic value in the future, especially with pine poles. I'm sure we're gonna see some decent prices on the next few years in the spring too with some of the red pine that's been planted in the 50s, 60s that we're still managing. So yeah, a little bit of economic, a little bit of still native, a little bit of we just try to diversify sterling as much as we can because the oak is just getting toasted out there.
Okay.
So, and then in terms of like Lorraine McKinley, you know, we just have just over 7,000 acres there. That's all using mechanized equipment to do the reforestation or the regeneration if we decide to do a regeneration harvest. So it's using our tools and loggers to make that work. So very rare. Yeah, the only places that there's really supplemental planting in that area is old farm fields that were purchased by the county or yeah, it's pretty rare. Have you've done
Yeah, so Pam,
pretty much just
in the
that?
Northeast, we use natural regeneration. We're not
Yeah.
planting red oak. We're trying to grow it naturally. Same with sugar maple, basswood.
Got it.
That's focused in the Northeast and we don't have to plant that. We do it right, it comes back by itself.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, but sterling is, you have to.
Right. Well, and I know, like I said, I figured the soil type had a huge thing to do with it too. So I was just curious. It's that, I mean, like I said, I understood the economic piece but also just kind of curious. And also, you know, hardwoods take a lot longer to grow.
Yep, they do. And we have a lot of mature hardwood in that country. So everything's 80 to 120 years old. So, yeah, there'll be some times that we got to decide if we want to pursue oak, we're going to need to give it sunlight. So
Right.
Early successional, you know,
Right.
disturbance species. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I have one more question. So when our revenues are more than our expenses, where do those funds go then? The leftover funds,
General fund.
general fund?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I started a negative levy too.
Pay your wages.
So the negative late, I'm in the hole right away. It's calendar year negative levy. So there's negative levy revenue.
Yeah.
Then whatever surplus on top of what we're spending on myself of the forest and then the towns, that additional is general fund. So, which happened this year. So there was, everybody was got their money and, the rest just went to the general fund.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So before it goes to the general fund, does it pay off the loan for the land?
No, it's based on when my sales close.
Okay.
Yep. So,
That might.
say I didn't sell, if I didn't close a sale this year at all, they won't invoice me.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So,
So it's only based on what you get on that. So then it gets paid off that way.
correct. Yeah. Make sure that you have revenue to pay it back. Yeah. For the
Sure.
20% payback. So, I had to just send a formal letter for the grant, the amount that's different, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could, just request it to pay it off and it would do it. But we're gonna run with the pay it back later as much as we can at zero interest. So,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
seems to work.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Number 11 then.
So I don't turn around. I just wanted to briefly introduce our compliance technician, Dylan Barr.
Okay.
He'll be coming up on a year with us here in April. He's got just a little update on kind of what he's been working on the last year. If he wants to give a brief background of his, where he came from, that's up to him. Yeah. Okay.
Morning, I'm Dylan Barr. Started in April here, so, and compliance report, just essentially we had, since I started in April, 133 complaints. And typically those complaints by the numbers percentage wise are building structures about 30%. Junk trailers, which are typically intertwined, but 22 for junk trailers, 22%, so. Landscaping 14%. Sewer or pouch violations 8, and then other 4%. So, yeah, if you have any specific questions, feel free to swing on by to the zoning office. So
You have any, huge complaints sitting out there right now? I mean, that you have to Joe or anything, or how many?
yeah, there's
There's a few that way.
a few out there right now that are in the legal system. So
Okay.
example, tires. So
Oh, sure. Okay.
They're all still in the citation phase, though. We haven't initiated any civil actions against anyone yet.
Yeah.
We're currently working on gaining compliance.
Okay.
There may be civil actions that may start sometime in the next few months, so again.
Sure. All right.
2 properties. 2?
for sure, yeah.
So just from April to now, you had 133 complaints.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Are they considered verified complaints?
So, right, in the other percentage of 4, there's like neighbor versus neighbor, or
Okay.
you
That's
follow
what-
up, you have
Yeah.
to follow up on them, even though it might be something that would pertain to DNR being in the waterway or,
Okay.
yeah, something.
All right. Just wondering.
Non-enforceable.
Okay. Sure. All right. Anybody else?
Wanted to put the face to the name.
Yep.
Thanks, Dylan.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, what do we have for that presentation on 12?
Yeah, I guess, I'll start by asking, what are you guys looking for from this specific topic? As far as like what the process would be for if there's a zoning interpretation change and how that should go from that point on? Or I guess I wasn't 100% clear on, what you guys would like to see for this agenda topic.
Well, I think what we heard from the contractors that were speaking last time, that they just don't know when there's changes made, because until they come in and apply for something that used to be okay and isn't now, they have no way of knowing that those changes occurred, because they were all told that all of our changes were going to happen during the update time frame. And then that would be, all those changes then would be available for them to see. But now there's changes that happen whenever, and they're not aware of it. So if there's a process, I don't know what the process is, but there's got to be a way for people to get updated on changes so they know when they're going out and bidding these jobs, yes, I can do this, or no, I can't do that, because they don't know today from what they were saying at the last meeting. So I don't know what's the correct way to do that, because it used to be, we did those changes once a year. If there was changes, they could see them, and we didn't do them willy-nilly throughout the year. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a difference between an ordinance change and an interpretation change is the main thing.
Yeah, that's.
So, I mean, if
A
there,
change is a change to them though, because it impacts what they do. And if we're making changes, they need to be aware of it. And you can't have things set up where 1 month they go in and they get a permit, the next month they go in for the same thing, they don't get a permit, and then the next month they come back in and they can get a permit. It can't work like that. It's got to be consistent with, we make those changes. That's why we decided to have that time frame where we make an update and get any updates in, and then they're aware, everybody's aware of it.
And if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
I did think that was an important thing that was brought up at the last meeting. Well, it is something that's going to help prevent any potential litigation with the county as well, if we are very clear about when we're making changes. One suggestion that I would put forward is, obviously when we have changes to the actual language, that's noticed.
Yep.
Not everyone's going to know about it necessarily, but we can't let everyone know that everything that's going on in the county, we can't send out specific mailings and emails.
Yep,
et cetera,
yep,
to
I
every
get
single
that.
person. But it is important that we communicate when changes are happening. And so a suggestion that I would make would be that when there's some sort of interpretation change, either because a case comes out that says, hey, you know what, everyone in the state's been reading this wrong, and now this is what the courts are saying, this is how we're reading it. I think that that should be brought to you, not necessarily so that you're aware, because you're not necessarily the ones going and getting permits, but that way it's in a public setting. Everyone has an opportunity to come and listen to it, and we then can say, hey, here's an update to how the whole state is reading this. Or in a case where Logan and I meet and make a determination that we haven't been reading this right. Other places in the state are reading it differently. Which one is the more appropriate way to read it? And then we make a decision that we've been doing something wrong. We should be coming to the committee and saying, hey, just so you all know, you and the public, we think we've been reading this wrong. This is how we're going to do it from now on. I believe this is more defensible, et cetera, et cetera. So that was one thing that came out of that meeting that I didn't think was an important aspect that I don't know that we necessarily been doing, but I do think that we should do moving forward.
Yep,
Is
totally
make
agree.
sure that when we decide that we're going to change how we interpret something, bring it to this committee and tell you, again, not so you hear it, but so everyone hears it.
Proper knowledge. So there's, oh, go ahead.
So with that, but now you make a change, say you made one this morning before you came in here. How, is it implied right then that everything changes to that interpretation then? Do we start?
When does it
The
go into
minute,
effect?
when does it kick in?
Interpretation. So that'll
you
have to
walk
be.
in and decide, okay, I'm gonna take the worst scenario, the one rock high. Yes, it's good. Okay, now they say it isn't. A day later.
Right.
The DNR says, no, you can't do that. When does that kick, when does that interpretations, when are they gonna kick in?
So difficulty is going to be it's going to be kind of weighing the need to change immediately with the need for people to be aware of the change. Obviously, we'll try to get it on and as soon as possible, but there may be a case that says everyone's been doing this wrong. You need to change now. We can't continue to operate in the way that we were operating in the past and wait to tell the committee, hey, we're going to change this. If the court says this is against the law, what you've been doing, we need to change right now. We don't get
Okay.
to wait 2 weeks.
So some things will be that way, but some interpretations,
And then we'll tell you, hey, we changed this. Unfortunately, we've had to address this with landscapers or people applying for permits as they've come in. Now we're letting you know because this is the first opportunity to let you know. But in circumstances where Logan and I are talking and or Logan himself, because it's his authority to do so, make a determination, hey, this is being interpreted wrong, I think, and other counties are doing it differently. I probably want to change this. In a circumstance where it's not time sensitive, it could probably certainly wait until it comes here and then say, hey, I'm going to change it effective this day. So that, again, everyone has no.
so that would be a big one
My
there.
point is, I'm not designing a specific thing that's going to happen. I'm saying, I think that that is a very valuable thing that the public brought to this, to staff and this committee. And I think that that is something that should change. And I believe that has been heard across the entire administration.
And that's why we went with that. Here's the time frame when we're going to make changes, because we were doing it throughout the year and it was very confusing for everybody. So then we went with, we have this one time that we're going to make changes. And
Our ordinance season,
yep,
yes.
yep. Yeah.
Yep. And again, there are going to be circumstances where things are going to come up where we can't just wait until January because that's ordinance.
Sure.
If we believe that we're doing something wrong, we should correct it as soon as possible.
So right now, what do we have we have November, December, January, February, about those 4 months are our ordinance change time, is it? About what we think. That's usually what it takes. 4 months with public hearings and stuff.
For the ordinance itself?
For the ordinance itself. It's about 4 months, isn't it? Okay, so sometimes it's gonna overrun a little bit. Like now we're already a month over. And we're still being another 2 months over. All right.
Okay.
I'm just, for timelines, I'm trying to look at it that way too. Go ahead.
So just for, you know, and not to discount, I do agree with Sharon, a change is a change, but there is also a difference between changing the ordinances, which would be ordinance season, versus realizing that there's been an interpretation, because the ordinance actually isn't going to change. If I'm understanding all this correctly, we didn't change ordinances, but just the interpretation at different times had changed. So therefore, which does obviously affect those that work there. I mean, that affects our landscapers, our builders and all that. So these interpretation information, that could happen at any time, not to jack people around or messing up, but just a matter of, I'm just clarifying what we're talking about, that we aren't, again, spreading ordinances back out again, in theory.
No.
But if something is brought to the attention to like, oh, we are interpreting this wrong. However, whatever legal cases, whatnot, this needs to be brought, maybe it's in June, because that's just when they found it out. Correct? Is that what I'm hearing all the way around?
That and interpretation changes are going to be rare. They're going to be the result of instruction from the DNR. They're going to be based upon the cases that come out that either directly say, hey, you're doing something wrong, or seem to indicate that you're doing something wrong. And that's going to determine whether a change needs to happen.
But it still could happen in June or July or whenever, yeah.
But
July 1st is a big one because that's the state's. Yeah, I mean, that's when the state changes. That's like when Act 55 kicked in.
Sure.
It was July 1st. So I mean, we still sit middle of the year, we get hit.
And the
Or
intent
can
is
be.
that they will be rare and they will be on the agenda.
For your information so that you know what's going on.
To get to the public, all right. Any other questions on that portion?
And hopefully, if any of them come up during ordinance season, they get addressed through the ordinance process. So.
Sure, okay. All right. Any other questions on that then? Maybe this other stuff will come up. All right. So. We're gonna go into closed session then.
Well, so I can give a quick litigation update without going to close. Just one thing before going into close.
Okay.
I think this has happened since our last meeting and our last litigation update. The ruling came down from Judge Vlack saying that he's not going to stay his order pending the appeal. So now we're waiting for the appeal. Arguably, you could appeal that decision. It's not worth it. We'll just wait for the appeal. I did get a question from one of the supervisors asking, is this indicative of the appeals case getting resolved sometime soon? Or is this indicative that, why do we think Judge Vlack made his decision now versus earlier versus later? I don't know that we can make any kind of heads or tails of the timing of it. I don't think that it's any indication that the appeals decision is coming soon. I don't think it's any indication of really anything other than Judge Vlack made his decision now, and this is what it is. Now, the decision doesn't really affect anything because although we're having snow today, we're not going to be opening the snowmobile trails likely anyway because it's going to be 50 degrees in 2 days. But again, just so you're aware, as I think you all are, that happened. And so now the status is we're just waiting for the appeals decision. Okay. Any questions on that?
The reason he did it now is he's retiring. He's trying to clean his plate that he left open for years. Yeah, 4 years just for ours, but all the other stuff he's got too. I think he just kind of threw us all under the bus for 4 years. All right. Yay. Okay. So that's all on that. All right.
I don't think there's anything else.
And then
Wise for open.
to go into closed session we'll need a motion.
I'll move. I'll second.
To go into closed session for 1985 1G. Would be from Tracy, seconded by Pam.
Closed session, I'm sorry.
Yes, we're gonna go in there.
Give me a minute. See you.
Doug can stay on.
See you later. Give me a minute to figure this out.
All right. Okay, that's all right.
I'll have the clerk step out also. You got your little. Kim, I would ask that Joe get to stay. I'll note it down now.
While he's getting, let me just write down everybody that's in here.
Chad, are you able to make
Chair, Mr. Chair,
Lunch.
once we're open.
Is Joe here?
Either one. Oh, he'll be here.
We got the other.
Oh, we got the Joe, yeah.
Got the other.
We're gonna have
Yep. It's not Daryl and Daryl, it's Joe and
Those
Joe.
Joes, it was Sunday, Joe, those Joes are always in here. All right,
Another way you must know.
Discussion, possible action, we're on number 13. Joe might want to, is he coming back?
so we're going through this now?
Just the green, I think, to look at.
Yeah,
If
the red
you
we
got something
already
else,
talked about.
We already talked about the green was the only
the green or whatever was marked.
one.
So number on page 17
17,
is
there's the
highlighted.
yellow,
The yellow.
the yellow highlight.
Oh, yeah, that one, I just wanted to make sure it didn't get overlooked. So it's green, so that's something I just wanted to make sure it didn't
Yep.
get passed through, because
Okay.
that was a lot of
Okay.
discussion on that.
Yeah.
Now, and that definition is from where?
That is just a definition that I.
That we can find or whatever?
I think I pulled it right from Merriam-Webster dictionary, just because I didn't know where to start, I guess. That's where I started. I've been told in the past that if there's something's not defined, that's probably the first place someone's gonna go. But
What does the DNR define it as?
they don't have a definition, so I can touch on.
It's what you can find in their documents that says it's a wall to hold back
Yeah.
dirt structurally.
But they also have it, a retaining wall is a structure built above the ordinary high water mark. They've got that in their documents too.
Yeah.
That's just a structure built, no size, no anything. It's an accessory structure.
A
Yeah.
retaining
Bill.
wall.
Not a retaining.
It says a retaining wall, which is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Is an accessory structure.
No, they also say a retaining wall is a structure built above the ordinary high water mark meant to reduce land erosion due to steep grades. For project above the ordinary high water mark, natural vegetation preferred for stabilizing steep slopes and bluffs. Retaining walls may be appropriate for areas that are actively eroding and subject to the zoning regulation of your local shoreland ordinance. Yes, I'm taking this off of what Mr. Hall presented, but I also did verify it is absolutely in the DNR's language.
Yep.
So, but yet then other places, they say it's an accessory structure and can't be used within 75 feet, even though other places they say it can be used above the ordinary high water mark. That blows my mind.
Yeah, so I think the main thing is above the ordinary high water mark doesn't necessarily mean where, and that's where the setback comes in, is in the shoreland ordinance. They're considering that in the definitions right in the model ordinance, underneath accessory structure is retaining wall. So I guess to touch on that, not for much of a document, the retaining wall document. I
So
could
how-
look at like 14 to 16, I believe. That should be the whole different document, not this.
Which one?
The
retaining wall?
We were talking.
See if this one.
Sure.
That one?
Nope.
Oh.
So in the shoreland area, I went through several, like I said, I don't remember if it was a dozen or 14 counties. Every county doesn't have a definition. So what that would tell me is that they would determine administratively what a retaining wall is at
Case by
that time.
case.
Yeah, so if someone came in and said, I'm looking to do this, no, that's a retaining wall, it has to meet the setback. Hey, I'm looking to just do this. Yeah, we wouldn't consider that a retaining wall. I mean, it's obviously more up to the zoning administration. But I just wanted to, for clarity, most counties didn't put it in there, and I think probably for the reason to not pigeonhole to one thing. And then like we had in the past where we said one rock is okay, that definitely opened up a lot of opportunity. This is what Burnett County has. I mean, I think it pretty much covers.
That's similar to what the DNR.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yep.
similar.
Yeah.
And that's where you can still define the retaining wall, but the biggest public concern or concern from landscapers and contractors is the setback. They would like to be able to put, what we would probably now consider a retaining wall closer than 75 feet, whether it be for a boathouse or something like that. So is a definition required? No. Is there a way to come up with a definition that we think the DNR would certify? Possibly, but it's gonna be tricky as far as it's not gonna be able to spell out, well, this isn't a retaining wall. And just like the one Boulder said, this isn't a retaining wall, like it does now. When the DNR says, no, that is a retaining wall. Whether you wanna just say it in language that it's not, it is, because it's
I don't know how.
But didn't that also come up where they could just put something around a mailbox or a flagpole and
Yeah, and so that's,
considered a retaining wall because then they put mulch behind it?
and that's where I think it would be
That's-
administrative decision on that, or
Okay.
staff would, someone says, hey, I want to put, fieldstone around my flagpole. We would say, we're not considering that a retaining wall.
Right.
Someone says, we're gonna put 3-foot boulders into this hill to hold this, yeah, that's a retaining wall. So then it'd be, rather than saying, well, our definition says this, so we're kind of stuck. That's why I think most counties don't put a definition in there, but that's just.
Be better off
my
not to have a
review.
definition.
I don't know.
That's where it's,
To leave it as open as possible, but still have it in there,
Well, because in your flagpole example, you're not holding back earth.
correct.
unless you put dirt behind it.
Structurally.
Right, structurally. But if you put them in the side of a hill,
It's not dirt.
Yeah.
you are.
So like a fire pit. I'm thinking
And you
about. the
stack
fire pit.
rocks around it, yeah.
No, the fire pit was dug into the ground.
Yeah.
So the stones, they weren't stones, the landscape block started like a foot down into the ground around. It was probably 3, 4, maybe 4
High.
bricks high. That would be considered a retaining wall.
No,
A fire pit, probably. They have it directly identified as a fire pit in the definition too, but, like if you're building a fire pit, that's gonna be considered a.
How many, remind me, and I just don't remember now, how many accessory structures are you allowed to have?
So accessory structures, there's no limit. Accessory buildings is 2.
It's the buildings
Yeah,
that
It's
are.
the building,
that's the
okay,
main-
the buildings are two, and then
You could have-
4 along the lake.
You could have
Excuse me.
8 retaining walls all behind 75 feet and we're not gonna say you can't have, that doesn't count in the 2, I
Yeah.
guess I should say.
This is only in the shoreline part, the 75 feet. And then if you do need one or shoreline, you get a permit from the DNR to do shoreline restoration or that. So what we're looking at, the landscapers want to be able to mitigate or build like a rain garden and stuff. Would that be considered a retaining?
And that's where it's all gonna be project specific, but most rain gardens, I would say, are not a retaining
They're
wall.
not.
Cause I mean, they're not, rain gardens should be on flat ground, otherwise, or
Well,
dug in.
Dug in.
They're not gonna be on a slope, otherwise nothing's
they're
gonna
gonna
go.
Some are going to be halfway down the hill and have to have something to hold it back.
Yeah.
To slow
yeah.
it down. So I mean, there's going to be some that have steps to it. So is that going to be a retaining wall or is that going to be mitigation of?
That's gonna be up to the zoning administrator.
Or is that?
That's why, that's what
that
the
not gonna happen?
interpretations is what we need out there. Is that, how is that going to be interpreted? That's what maybe so that the whole department, whoever goes out, knows what to say. Because if Logan isn't there, Sarah goes out, or Kara, and they should all be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because one will go out and say no, and one will go out and say yes, and then they'll go, well, if Logan isn't there today, I'm gonna have her come out so I can get it passed. Play that game.
Yeah.
Is he sick today? I'll get somebody else out there. So I mean, we gotta set a standard.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I'm saying? That, okay, you did the measurements. Okay, now we see it. Now it's in right. Okay, that's where it says how to measure it. I think we're gonna have to do in mitigation the same thing a little bit. Try to at least.
The problem you're gonna run into is retaining wall is, when you see it, it's what it is, right? A fire pit's gonna be different than a retaining wall. Nope, that's a
Yeah.
fire pit. That's a retaining wall. The definition of a retaining wall is it holds back earth. That's the
And leave it.
general idea of what a retaining wall is. As you add additional restrictions, what you're gonna run into is people coming up with more and more creative ways to find their way around your definition.
Correct.
Problem that we run into is that, if you have a very specific definition, it becomes harder to argue the fact that the zoning administrator has the authority to interpret. The more restrictions you put, the less interpretation is allowed. Zoning administrator just because Sarah's the one that goes out, I'm not saying she ever would,
I'd love to.
but let's say Sarah's the one that goes out and is deciding on a permit. Nothing says she has to make a decision right now. She can take pictures, come back, do an assessment with Logan, let Logan reach out to the DNR and have the two of them together make a determination. Is this a retaining wall? Is this not a retaining wall? Does this fit the parameters of X, Y, and Z? Then
But
the
that's what
question,
we need those parameters.
question becomes, is it a reasonable interpretation? That's what makes it defensible if someone sues and says you're wrong. We go to the Board of Adjustment and they say, this isn't a retaining wall. Do we have a reasonable interpretation of the ordinance that defines what a retaining wall is? And is Logan acting within his authority to make that determination? So, I mean, you can get as nitpicky as you want.
Because he doesn't have to go to the DNR to get, he doesn't have to go to make that determination.
Correct, but they should be working together on many things so that there is consistent interpretation across the state.
Shoreland area.
And for the shoreland area, right?
I believe that the certified ordinance or the ordinance from
19.
2019, I don't believe that definition was in there.
I don't think there's one at all, is there?
That's what, yeah.
I don't think there's a retaining wall definition at all.
And if there's no definition, it falls back on the common usage of the word. which,
Yep.
Again,
Is what I think I put in there, I believe, I'm pretty sure that's
Yeah, I don't think it was.
To hold back dirt.
a structure to hold back, yeah.
Yeah. Do we need it?
Do we want it in there or do we not want it in there? I mean, what, if it's case by case? I mean, do we want a definition that? Or,
This is pretty open to interpretation. And then, and that
we
way,
have a definition.
that way, if they come in with their plan, like they said, most of them want to come in with a plan ahead of time. That would be determined then. If it's on an 8% slope, 6%
moving
slope.
along.
I mean, if they come in ahead of time with these plans, it would be known then.
Right. What do you think is in the best interest for staff, Logan?
I mean, I could see it definitely both ways.
Not to put
You would
on-
start getting down, like Supervisor O'Connell or Chair O'Connell said, where now if someone's gonna argue, if we say it's holding back earth and now it's holding back 2 inches of mulch, if someone's gonna
Yeah. That's,
test that. So I mean, if you maybe would take that out of it, if you just didn't have one and it's truly just, no, we're not, that's not a retaining wall, that's not. And then it would be up to me if someone appeals it to voice my, argue that at the appeal of.
that's what they were saying, that what if I put my edging down and it holds back dirt or mulch, is that a retaining wall?
Yeah.
And it's 3 inches high, something like that. And is that for mitigation? Is it a landscape plan?
Yeah, take it out.
Just take it out.
And there's always we don't want to continue to have ordinance revisions all the time. We went 20 years without one, but there is an opportunity to next year, if it's not working, or for the zoning administrator to bring forward concerns if it's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Way, take it out or leave it in, either way, I suppose.
right.
I'd take it out.
I think we should take it out and leave it in mitigation or whatever.
I would
Just
just
change that.
It's gonna revert back to the definition anyway, if it's not in here.
Right, for appeal.
Yeah.
So,
On an appeal, it was,
so, I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's there or not. It's gonna revert back to the definition, most common definition, so.
And going by his study, the majority don't have a definition.
Yeah.
So.
and I,
The neighboring
they don't.
Yeah.
Most of them don't have it because of that. And then, like the DNR said, the one rock one you can't have.
Right.
So that one we got to strike.
Move and move on.
Yep, all right. So by consensus, just take that one out. Okay, now where's the next
44, I think.
44?
44.
Most of that was already done.
Didn't we pretty much leave that?
I think everybody.
You combined it because you had the boathouses
combined it.
before a certain time and then
Yeah.
after, I think it looks like that was the combined that.
Yeah.
The dry boathouses, because there was language about, there was two different languages and we decided or talked about combining it and this looks like the combined
The
language.
combined language.
Yeah, so you guys had, is this, sorry, I was.
On page 44.
Yeah,
Yep, so we had it in
Like
existing,
time.
new, and we were talking about kind of redundant language in both places, so I attempted to do here is to have it act the same exact way, but just be in one section rather than
One section with all the stuff.
listing all three of those. So because we would still allow flat roofs, I don't think we would need to say in there, existing flat roofs can have a deck. That would only be if we were preventing flat roofs going forward, but we're not, we're allowing them. So any flat roof, whether it's existing or new, can have the deck. So I think that kind of took out
It took out
this
some of
section
that.
here that we used to have, the number one, that specifically touches on existing boathouses. I believe because we're still allowing all those things, it's directly all accounted for in this new
In the new-
proposed language.
So
Or not new language, just different.
just different, yeah. But the only thing, and then on 1B, the open handrails, 3.5 feet tall, boom, boom, boom. Should that be if it's on a flat roof? Somebody might try to put it on a gable roof, handrails, but I don't know if they will. But I mean,
Are you serious?
Wait for idiots.
I just,
Yeah, no.
I mean, do we make it
Yeah.
bulletproof and put if on a flat roof? You know, just add that. It has open handrails, meet the, you know, the
You know, common
DS
sense prevails.
standards.
If you want to put a rail
On a roof of a boathouse,
have at it.
if a flat roof on the end of it or
Braver
something.
than I.
Well, do you need to say if there's access to the flat roof? Because
No,
if you don't
no,
have
it's
access,
not. They can get permits to get access. If it's a flat roof, they put it on there. I'm just saying they might try to put it on a gable roof or something stupid. I don't know.
It says may be constructed, so even
Yeah.
if you have a flat roof, you don't have to have railings on
Yeah,
there.
you don't have to.
Yeah, and I think it may be, could be addressed in J there, where we say that the pitched roof shall not be designed or used as a deck, observation platform, or
Oh, so it-
similar uses. So I mean, we could maybe
So it's
add,
kind of covered that way. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yep, I see it. Yep, yep. So it was, okay. So the boathouse section is good. Are we? Okay.
There was are we solid on the credentialed professional as
We're not
far
there
as?
yet. What
Well,
number?
no, but that's, the credentialed professional is part of the boathouse excavation, is part of
Yeah.
I.
Mhm.
So I don't, unless there's other places to talk about, I
That's the
don't-
next one on page 60.
it is, okay, so even though it's part of that, we'll move, sorry.
I believe that.
Okay.
Without my glasses on, I see the word.
50, not 60 more.
Got it,
Oh.
yep, it is. All right, sorry about that.
It's 50 that it was.
See, I'm like,
Glasses
hey,
help.
where it talks about, I have magic crystal lenses, so I don't have to have that. Boathouses must have mitigation capturing all runoff from the structure. That's where, when we talk retaining walls, a lot of those boathouses, because they're built into hills, have to have some kind of retaining wall or wing wall or whatever they're called, potentially, to help catch runoff, right?
yeah, and I don't think there's any way for us to, or as well as the committee, to put something in there that says they're allowed for boathouses, because it's not allowed.
Right.
So either they're gonna have to apply for a variance to do a retaining wall with a boathouse, or they're gonna have to come up with ways that wouldn't be considered a retaining wall for that boathouse. And I know I've talked with a couple of the landscapers, and unfortunately, some of the sites that are 40% slope and the only way to do it is a retaining wall, it might be, a boathouse might not be as suitable for that site if they don't get a variance. If the variance is denied, then it's just, if that's the only way you can get a boathouse, but it's not directly, the retaining wall doesn't coattail behind it and you automatically get it because you got a boathouse. And that's pretty clear, as far as that we can't allow a retaining wall just because the site requires it.
So they really couldn't ever get a variance then either, right?
That would be up to the BOA if they feel that they're proving the 3 criteria for that, proving a hardship, physical property limitations. So I mean, that's where that directly would,
So you still could, they couldn't say,
But they'd have to. go to
sorry,
BOA.
you can't do this because, unless you get a variance.
Yeah, so what we would, if someone came in and said, here's my boathouse plan, we got, we have to have retaining walls because it's, it's
Yeah.
a steep slope. We would say, we can't administratively approve you a
Yep,
retaining
yep.
wall for that
You need to
location.
get a
You would
variance.
need to apply for it.
But you could still get a variance potentially.
So I think we can't say
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Can't say,
We can't say no,
yeah,
but we can say, here's what you have to do. You have to write
Correct.
a DNR or get this, and they
Yep.
can say no.
Yep.
That they don't want it.
Any relief from the ordinance, which the relief would be the setback, any relief from the ordinance has to go to the Board of Adjustment.
Yeah.
I know.
Cause anything within the 75 would be DNR, like a shoreline restoration or any of that. Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I guess, sorry, not to go back, but just on the boathouse B, maybe now that I'm looking at it, if I just put flat roof or flat in front of roof there, and then maybe that'll just tie it completely together. So there's not the confusion.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yeah,
It
that's,
just says maybe constructed on the flat roof of
Yep.
the boat.
Put flat.
And then that'll just,
That'll
that'll tie it off,
tie
I
it
think.
And
Just so there's not the,
I would care what it falls off.
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah. Maybe it'll help us in the future.
Have them crawl out that sunroof.
Easier to
Yeah.
add. So yeah, the credentialed professional. I didn't leave that green in the definitions is where it would be. Guess maybe we didn't touch on it. I left it in as a consensus because I don't think there was any change in.
What page was that?
That's back on 12, but I mean, it directly affects page 50 and the boat house. That was, I know the question was brought up on.
Third from the bottom on page 12.
Okay,
The credential,
yep.
but right, doesn't 150 have some of that in there that if you're doing this, it has to have, if it's treated water, a professional has to sign off. Is that not in the model ordinance? I read that and I thought that this would still make sense there.
I guess I'm not 100% sure on that. It very well could be where they,
If it has to be proven that it's treated.
underneath the treated definition.
Yes,
I don't have the model with me, but
I got one
So,
here.
but if I may.
Go ahead.
So just for an example then on this, where it says, or another credential approved by the zoning administrator. So if you had something like, I'm pretty sure it was Mr. Hall that brought in his example of his plan at the last meeting, like this, and maybe it was Mr. Nelson. I honestly can't remember which one. But, the fact that they've worked with X, Y, and Z and laid out, this is the type of rock and this is the type of slope and would they be considered a credentialed professional depending on the slope of, depending on the slope of where they're going to do it?
yeah, yep. And maybe now looking at this, it may be best to take credential out of that last sentence where it says, or another, and then put professional approved by the zoning administrator. That may be the best way to do that, because if we say another credential, if they don't have credentials to, hand over, but if we consider them a professional, so if we say, or another professional.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I'm just thinking that if, how do you tie in common sense with like, hey, they've done the job, they've been doing the job, there haven't been a problem, yep, they understand slopes, they understand all this stuff, without saying, no, I need to see your credentials.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole reason that last sentence was put in there, to open that up a little bit as far as, okay, we can say,
Or just like.
if we say no,
Professional.
yeah, if we say no, you're not, credential or considered a professional, I mean, which is getting a little hairy, but I mean, as far as if we are not comfortable with the design, we may say, hey, we would request you take one of these credentials to provide a plan. Someone that comes in with a plan that is a pretty much mirror image of what a credentialed professional that has these is, that's where it would be, the zoning administrator could make that determination that, okay, this is a professional design.
Yep.
Are we okay with that, corporate counsel, as far as, is that leaving it too open or too subject?
So you want to remove the word credentialed from, what section are you talking?
Page 12.
Credential,
Well-
professional, or we're gonna, and then remove credential and, or another professional.
Yeah, I think it would say, or another professional
Approved by the zoning
approved
administrator.
by the zoning. Again, it's probably
Yeah,
not required.
I think it's fine. It gives
Okay.
the zoning administrator the discretion to make the determination.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just didn't wanna, like that.
The only difference is, or another credential approved, so basically if there's some other erosion or stormwater credential that doesn't specifically comply with this, it depends on whether you want just a professional with lots of experience or whether you want someone with an actual certification or credential of some sort. I think it's fine to have it say professional. I guess we'll find out when the DNR sends it back.
Perfect. I mean, that's
That's
would be
fine
my
with it, but
suggestion. I know.
I think it should be fine.
I mean, is that what they're-
I'm sorry.
I said, I think it should be fine.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think when we get deeper into mitigation, I mean, we're gonna have some better standards that go downstairs to land and water.
Yeah.
Who do have the credentials,
Right. Oh,
so that they
absolutely.
can at least be reviewed until somebody else, if Logan gets one, but at least he can say, yes, this will work
Right.
on a pretty flat spot, or now it's getting
Or
too
whatever.
bad. You better go to land and water and have them check this.
Perfect.
Yeah, what this may help with is a property owner themselves comes in and says, I'm doing this project myself. This is my plan. And we say,
Mm,
do you, I mean, if all the standards are there and whatever, maybe, but it's like, if you've never done it before and you're just jumping in and gonna start cutting into this hill, that's where we could say, hey, we need some credentials
You
here.
need
We
some-
can't just
Yeah.
say yes.
You'd have to rewrite it a little bit, and we can work on getting that accomplished. We wouldn't be able to just change that credential word into professional, but we can certainly change it to basically end the list at soil erosion inspector, period. And then start a new sentence that says, any professional with
Approved by.
with an approved amount, or approved by the zoning administrator that has a significant amount of experience in X, Y. I mean, we can change
Yes.
the language to.
rather than just any, you're just not gonna let a nurse do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's my credential.
So we wouldn't be able to
Right.
just change that one word, but we
Got
can,
it.
we can get that squared away.
I think we can jump back to page 50 then.
Yeah.
I don't think anything changed all that much. It was kind of pending as far as what we were going to put in there for the rainfall event that we wanted to have. So I did work with Land and Water on this. They felt it was appropriate. Other counties had it as this as well, a 2-year, 24-hour rainfall event per the National Weather Service precipitation frequency data server. So that's where, instead of saying a specific inch amount, because that does change as the years go by, we'll just say, a 2-year, 24-hour rainfall event. That's how much you have to design your mitigation at to consider it treated. And to clarify, treated is different than just mitigation. If someone's at like 50% impervious on their lot and they want to keep developing it, the state code does say that if it's treated, you can exempt all that from it. So if somebody has their whole house going into a professionally designed infiltration pit or something, and there's a maintenance schedule that this is all going to be done, you can exempt that from the calculation of your impervious surface on the lot. So that's why there's really strict guidelines on this, because it's not just put a rain garden and put your gutter into it. It needs to be proven that this is truly going to be treated. Whereas mitigation is a little less, if you're at 15 going to 20, you just need to mitigate back down to 15. It's not near as stringent on what your plan has to be. This is very specific to people looking to go above and beyond even 30 and trying to bring it back to that.
So could you just said this, but could we remove the word credential to just say a professionally designed plan? Because here it's saying credentialed and over here we're saying,
Page 50 it says credential.
yeah. I mean, can we just say professionally?
On page 12, we still have credentialed professional, but we removed the second
Yeah.
credentialed
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah,
But now
So-
in the model ordinance, it's in notes, it says that you have to have a professional prove that that is treated water. So I think we have to leave that in there because I mean, it's a whole page. It's got like 4 notes. So if it's treated or anything, it has
Okay.
to be proven that it's treated. So it has to go into a storm pond, constructed wetland, infiltration basin, rain gardens, swells, or other engineered systems. So that's why I think that's in there, because that's in the impervious.
so then the only ones that could develop that plan are the certified professional erosion and stormwater or soil erosion inspector, because the professional part where we're saying Logan could decide
Yeah.
wouldn't fall into that credentialed professional.
It would. So it's referencing, this section is specifically referencing the definition that's on page 12.
Okay.
So that definition applies to credentialed professional.
Yeah.
So then
Because we
here,
changed it there, it includes.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So when someone reads that, they go, well, what's a credentialed professional? They're gonna go to page 12 and say, okay, you
It
have to
could be any of
or
these.
something approved. It
But
would
then,
still act the same.
Above it, where it says that on 2, treated impervious surfaces. The model ordinance, if you have it, yeah,
Yep. Mhm.
it says treated impervious surfaces. It's 11505. It has all these notes that would have to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, that's why that should stay in there as will be required. For that.
Oh, yeah, I thought it should stay,
Okay,
will be
that one should-
required. I just
okay.
wondered if we had to have the term credentialed in there, Val.
Yep. Okay. Now, what, page 53?
52.
There was just that land disturbance activity had green.
Oh, just the headline.
Yeah, I think that was just to kind of,
Change the title.
Title change.
Back of that.
So and this is pretty much right out of it too, isn't it? That we're trying to get 1,000 square feet.
are we on 53 now?
We're on 53.
Okay. Yeah, so at the last meeting, there was discussion on the parameters that would be used. So I wanted to leave this in green. I believe this is currently, the last bolded comment may not be in the current ordinance, but the parameters are exactly what we have currently. So I feel like we could operate with those same parameters that we have, and then we have it where a landscaping permit may be required for any disturbance under the threshold, which is also something we currently do for if someone's not meeting that specific criteria. So if somebody came in and they were doing that's again, all project specific, but if someone's doing a 600 square foot disturbance on those 12 to 20% slopes, it's not just, no, you don't need a permit. It's, no, you don't need to do the filling and grading plan for it, but we would still possibly, depending on what you're doing, would require the landscaping permit. And that's really, like I said, no change from how it's been. And then that kind of ties directly into C2, which previously stated that excavation for dwellings and sanitary systems are exempted from a permit under subsection B of the section if the excavation plan is approved by the zoning office prior to construction. And I changed that to erosion control plan, just to tie it in where if someone is coming in to, do a new dwelling on a sensitive area with, near the shoreline, we would want a little more of an extensive erosion control plan like we talked about at the last meeting, rather than just pretty general permits, because this said it's exempt from it. Granted, it did say they need an excavation plan currently, but I feel like putting erosion control plan there clarifies that you're not completely exempt from any land disturbance, but you are exempt from having to pull the filling and grading because it's for a dwelling or sanitary, but there is still the option, or we would at least be able to review it with land and water for an erosion control plan to make sure at least that part is being addressed.
And that soil erosion control plan is required by the dwelling inspector also, isn't it?
Yeah,
When you pull a permit?
it is. I think it is intended to be enforced underneath the UDC.
The UDC.
I think from the last meeting and just seeing possible issues, I think it would be ideal for us to also cover that, just so we're not saying, well, someone else isn't doing it, not our problem, where these sites can be pretty vulnerable depending on the parcel that it's on.
So this goes in with the land use also kind of, doesn't it then? Permit?
Yeah, so this is where someone comes in for a dwelling permit and we review the site, or, we say, where's your erosion control plan? And then that's where it could either be where if it's really not a vulnerable site and we feel comfortable, we can issue the permit with whatever they have planned for erosion control. Or if we come in and it's like, this is, a pretty substantial walkout on a steep slope, we would like our land and water department to also look at it. So that's where it'll be done internally, where if we don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, we think, your silt fences and this type of erosion control is fine, we would like land and water because they have a lot more experience working in that area of erosion control. Hey, do you guys think this looks adequate for an erosion control plan? They say yes, then we would, move forward with the plan.
Okay.
Whereas in the past, sometimes it would be, it would just say silt fences must be installed. It doesn't say where, it doesn't say anything, it's just pretty bland erosion or excavation plan it would have been at that time, but. And some people do it anyways, and it's great, but I think this would protect us to say, we do need an erosion control plan on this.
Okay.
And that's the reason under D as well that I know it was discussed that we would want to say we have to have review by land and water, but there may be projects that, because filling and grading involves within 300 feet of the shoreline. So there may be projects that we as zoning staff would feel comfortable signing off on. But it would definitely be like, again, where we would go to them if we don't feel comfortable, if we see something that definitely kind of piques our interest to this should be looked into a little bit further.
So that could be like a back lot, even though it's 300 feet.
Yeah, and someone's clearing an area or whatever and wanting to put a whatever up there, we can say, okay, yeah, we're approving that.
On D, would it make more sense to read, let's see, if a filling and grading permit may be granted, a site plan is required, and then have the parentheses, subject to review by Land and Water Resources Department, and parentheses, and must contain the following. Because you're doing the must contain the following information, and then you're going into another subject to review. I don't know.
Yeah, so you're saying kind of take the parenthesis away, put it after required, so it says is required, subject to review by Land and Water Resources Department, and must contain the following information.
Yep.
I think that seems.
That read better?
I think so.
It does read better.
Number D10, where it says erosion control practices implemented and locations on the property. So that's assuming there's been erosion control stuff already done on the property, or just if they happen to have those?
Yeah, so that's where if somebody, so that back to the criteria in B, if it doesn't meet the criteria, they don't have to meet D.
Yep.
But if they need to meet D, then they have to have their erosion control practices. So It's just saying that that's part of your filling and grading plan is the erosion control.
Okay.
I mean, we could maybe change it to plan to,
Erosion control plan.
that way it's consistent with the rest of the document where we reference erosion control plan.
Okay.
Just a quick question, if that's, I'm not sure this is the exact place to do it or not, but I had talked to Sarah a little bit before the meeting that we had the conversation about when there's the site plan and making sure the landscaper was involved and whatnot, so we don't have the situations where both landscapers talked about, they show up and it's like, now what do I do? And I just to bring it up as part of the general meeting conversation, that's kind of where this would fall in. And she also kind of led me to believe that it's be kind of part of your administrative process, that it won't be specifically listed in the ordinance, but the process will be, hey, we need to make sure we've got a situation here that could be, very fragile, that we're going to make sure the landscaper is involved. But is that kind of where it would tie in, is right here on this number D, is to have that, or is it somewhere else in the permit kind of thing? And like I said, if this is the wrong place to ask, I apologize.
Oh, I think it's exactly where to ask it. I think it'd either be in C2 where we're saying we need an erosion control plan, and that's directly on those sites where I say we're gonna tie land and water. That's also where, yes, whoever's
Landscape.
going to do the
Yep.
work, or they actually are supposed to be the ones, designing the plan and not just saying, hey, I need a plan for this. So that's where the meetings on vulnerable sites will likely happen.
Okay.
To get everybody on the same page. But to answer about like the staff, yes, staff, it is my, I guess, moving forward to look deeper into these permits rather than just, yes, you're meeting the setback. But it's like, okay, this is a walkout and they're going right at 75 feet and the landscapers are like, well, we need some sort of retaining here. So that's where we have to, as staff, say, all right, what are you guys doing for this walkout? How are you retaining it? And if this is your plan, this isn't meeting the setback. So the house may have to move back a little bit to adjust for what the landscaper had planned to do, not where they get to the point, hey, I'm gonna do the project, all of a sudden, oh crap, it's,
Right.
we can't meet setbacks on this.
But that's not going to be, just to clarify, so that's going to be more of like, it's time for the discussion with this. That's where we're talking about this. It's not actually going to be part of the actual ordinance. It's going to be part of your process. So like, hey, we need to make sure the landscaper is involved or it has their plan that goes along with this house because you're thinking about starting at 75 feet.
Yeah, correct. It would all be a better front end plan from us, or review, I should say, from us, rather than maybe how it had been done, where it's, I mean, we do have sites and some contractors that automatically say, hey, I would like to meet you and, the landscaper out here. And we have no problem doing that. We'll do that for whenever, somebody asks, because we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that's our job. But yeah, I just didn't want to get it down to where we have to meet. And because on some of these, it's like, you're actually, there's some lots on Bone Lake where the houses can only go 200 feet from the water, if there's wetland and stuff. It's like, do we really need,
Right.
extensive meeting on it? And maybe we still do, but I just didn't want to say we have to.
Didn't want to lock it down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see what page is next.
All right, 83.
Let's stop at 60. Oh,
What?
just stop at 60 first.
Oh, Did you redline?
Administration provisions, instead of 2-scale sketch, we want to put plan,
No.
site plan. Because it says on the bottom 2 lines, way on the bottom. C and D, it says a sketch. We want to get rid of sketches. We want to have a site plan there.
So a sketch is on page 60 of the packet, page 140 and 146, but I think that's of the ordinance.
Yeah.
But just so that we would plan to change anywhere it says sketch in the ordinance, it's requested that it says site plan, just so it's
I think that's better than saying
this
sketch.
sketch.
Did you say anywhere in the ordinance?
There's 4 spots.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think there was 4.
Page 140,
Insinuates more professional.
right up here.
Right?
Yeah.
So it isn't just drawn like or something, but
Instead of
that,
drawing on a napkin, it'd be more of a plan
In 7 spots.
in. Yeah, it might be. I think I have, or,
I think we found, what did we find? We went through there in a few spots.
yeah, I'll do the control F on and change all those.
Now, what page are we at for the next meeting?
83.
83 is
I think it would go into the subdivision ordinance. Which I post the packet going out. This county surveyor Ed did bring up a request. That is right here. So if we could jump back to page
83.
66 of the packet. Chad, could we get that scrolled to page 66, please, of this document, or not? Should be up, I guess. The definition, oh,
Very close.
yeah, I guess let's go down and start on that. Right, yeah, go up a little, or sorry, down. Right here, so in reference to this section.
It's 68 on the newest one.
Yeah.
Newest plan.
Survey required.
So this, yeah, so it's under some of that language that we had discussed at the past meeting and agreed on, I believe. He would like it maybe to be just a little more clear in a sense. So there would be two different ways to do it. One way would be to change the language to this, and I do have, you guys don't have to try to read it if you got the packet here somewhere.
CSMs.
And this is directly for if somebody's changing their lot lines, we want it to be where we have to review it.
Yeah.
Cause and I think just yesterday, and that's maybe what brought it up, is there's documents that get registered with the Register of Deeds, and they're illegal per se, where they created lots and it never got reviewed. So either the description's not accurate, and so then this would clear that up to say we require that to be reviewed by, the first part doesn't change. The second part would roll into, however, the legal description and preliminary deed of the contemplated sale or exchange, if real estate under this exemption, shall be reviewed through the completion of the Polk County subdivision application. An approved application and associated review are required prior to the document being recorded with the Register of Deeds. The legal description or preliminary deed shall clearly indicate the parcel to which it is to be attached. So again, not changing any, it wouldn't change or impact any way that we're gonna do things. It would just be more where he would be able to say to a surveyor or a land title and say that this has to be reviewed before it can be reported. Make sure that, because otherwise currently how it works is it gets recorded and then our land information technicians review it, and then they see the mistakes with it. It's not describing the correct parcel that they intended it to. So then they go back to the title company or whoever drafted it, get it to say that land they actually meant to say it. So that's where it's
Pretty much the same thing with just using different words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It gets pretty muddled.
He just won't cover.
And then, so this was one way to do it. The other way, which I think he obtained from Barron County, would be if we go towards the top of the document. Go further, I think it's 32 dash. Page 66. On the, sorry, keep going up, please, a little further.
Yeah.
So under the definition, a little further up.
Set forth. Is it the number
Well, it could
8?
be where we add in the definition of a subdivision that subdivision, exactly how it reads, it's the part for building sites or new lot lines.
Maybe not.
When I reviewed it, it just seemed like it was a little bit, didn't read as well. That's how a different county had done it, referenced new lot lines. And then that ties directly in the number. The other thing, a little bit low.
Oh,
So underneath, so it's the key documents which create the subdivision, then that's where the definition would tie this requirement in.
I believe that's how Barron County does it.
Yeah, so they have their definition of what a land division is, and then they say any land division has to be reviewed by the county prior to recording. So that's the two different ways that it could be done. I just wanted to show both of those and see if there's one way that's preferenced, but.
Is the one that explains it better should be in there?
is it approved by
Under
the
the
DNR?
3209?
I
I mean, do we put that one in there? The one that explains it better?
Yeah, I feel it covers it pretty good. Like, I mean, it's, again, it's
Even if it's.
saying the same thing, just trying to make it clear for someone that's gonna review our ordinance or try to, do I need a survey?
Yeah.
No, I don't need a survey, but I have to get this approved through a subdivision application.
So it might be better to have where you have it in green here in there.
The larger section under survey required.
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's, that would help, I think.
It's a little bit less referencing that way then too. So otherwise we'd probably say as referenced in here. So it's.
Yeah, but if it explains it a little better, that they do have to do something and get the deeds right beforehand.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you can record anything. If you got
Correct, yeah.
$35, I can record anything I
The
want.
register of deeds can't say no, if
Yeah.
somebody wants to record it, even if they
Yeah.
can tell it's wrong, but, or if the description's wrong, sorry, they
Yeah.
have requirements,
They
but.
don't throw it in there.
Good to know.
Record anything.
I can record anything. Oh, you should see what I was.
And then it's not in green, but 83 and 84 is still those sections, which I'll work with Attorney Loso on. Or just confirming that all of our language jives together if we are going to change the variances to go to the Board of Adjustment or the subdivision rather than the committee. Because there is a document that states procedures and it doesn't list the subdivision ordinance in their procedures for where they would be hearing those.
What they would hear. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where, right now, it seems like maybe, I don't know which one came first, but it seems like we may have to look at that to make sure we're not contradicting the BOA's procedures document when we send a subdivision up there and they go, well, our procedures don't say we even look at that ordinance, but.
But that goes back to that they look at any variances or appeals from the committee. And we have to do that for the 2009 stuff. So hopefully that's added maybe is all. To their duties or whatever.
Yeah, we might have to change their procedure documents. Yeah.
Of the BOA. Okay.
So it wouldn't be something we would change. If we can see that we're able to do it, this would then be right. We would just have to change that document.
Just to make
Yep.
that's part of their duties and stuff. Okay. All right. Now, how far do we go?
I think it's down to page 100, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where, so this is where we currently had retaining wall in the ordinance, or we currently have it. It can be removed completely. Our current definition doesn't, under accessory structure, I think our actual current definition doesn't state retaining wall in it. We would also need to take that out. So what this would impact is areas outside of shoreland. If we have a retaining wall, I mean, in a sense, we'd be saying a retaining wall is not a structure, which but that's something,
Accessory structure.
an accessory structure. Say it's an accessory structure, we have to charge the accessory structure fee, which would be $100 for an accessory structure. But if we don't want the requirement out, outside of shoreland areas to, if someone wants to put in a retaining wall, if there doesn't want to be a permit required, then we're gonna have to make sure it doesn't state that in our ordinance that we require permits for accessory structures, and accessory structures are retaining wall. So, and I think the consensus was that you guys would rather not have someone have to pay for a retaining wall, but it is a little tricky because they pay for all other structures outside of, or there's a fee for all other structures outside of the,
Outside of the building.
or no, outside of the shoreland ordinance.
Shoreline.
Remove it.
If there's any building larger
Definition of that,
8 by 8, it requires a permit currently, whereas
but we can't take it out of
I like rock.
it's got to stay in.
definition. It has to stay in this accessory structure.
And it's probably best to take it out, the definition for sure.
Yep.
Because otherwise we're gonna have a definition in general and not in shoreline, which is gonna be,
We already voted.
Yeah.
it's, you can do it, but, because they don't care about the general, but
We already took it out.
there's,
Take that out.
Take it out.
All right, so
So it's consistent. Just take it out.
Yeah.
Strong opinions over here.
taking out,
Yeah,
it's
just
personal
strike
gain.
Yeah.
It's a personal gain. I like to stack my rocks high.
it. Yeah.
It's okay.
And then everything else pretty much stayed. And then that was the last thing. I didn't mark it.
oh yeah, there's the page 104 at the top. That's where I added the language to state that the jurisdiction of this chapter is the unincorporated areas of the county, except for towns that have not adopted the county's general zoning or comprehensive.
Yeah.
So that's where it'll say,
That's in general, so that's, we're safe. That can be there.
so in
I have just a general procedural question or courtesy question. I mean, there's some of the discussion overall is like, well, they wanted the specific towns listed because people don't know which towns are on it and, or, where to go. Is it customary practice or could it be customary practice that if someone calls into county zoning, that they say, oh, and by the way, you are in Apple River Township, make sure you contact your Apple River people. I mean, it just, and that doesn't need to be a procedure. I mean, that doesn't need to be written down, but just curious is that if there's all this, well, they don't know who to contact. Well, I would think in general, you would go to county zoning first, but is it common practice or could it be to say, you're in, Apple River
She
Township?
gets
Just
those
so you.
questions a lot.
I personally heard Hannah say those words.
yeah,
And I'm just verifying, that's all.
yeah, we do get that a lot. And that's where some of the, in the shoreland areas, it can get confusing as far as we still require a permit for this, but not for this. But yeah, in the general areas, they call in and say, hey, I'm building a house. We pull up our map, GIS right away. If you're not in shoreland and you're in the town of Apple River. And then I don't know if it's every time, but yeah, I can definitely bring that to staff. Like we should be, but you also want to check with Apple River because they likely will require a permit.
And the towns should be doing the same thing. When they come into the towns, they should be saying,
We do, because I get it a lot.
I don't think you do.
No, I get a lot of calls from my area, I'm sure.
But see,
I
then,
do. I say, well, what permits do we need from the
like Apple
towns?
River, I tried to have to
Well,
put that
nothing.
in there, so it was
You
known.
need to go to the county,
Didn't
because we
wanna
have
put it
county
in.
zoning.
And we are
That shoreline, you still.
looking at possibly, there's a function in our software, permitting software, that we can send a letter of conditional approval, which would be an area we could put that in. And then no matter where you're at, it would say, check with your town. And it could be where it's only, I believe we could turn it on for only the towns that have it. So then it just automatically generates. It says, this is your town building inspector, which we write those on the permits currently. Check with him, check with your town. I think a lot of it, is probably getting it double covered, but that's fine. But I think once we send it to the town of Apple River building inspector, most of the time, or should be, where he's like, hey, you guys need a permit. Because I think there's towns that the building inspector is actually the one that's issuing the land use permits, I think. I guess I'm not 100% sure, but.
Some of them, they're zoning, it's.
zoning person too.
Where they're
Yeah.
zoning,
Yeah, that's what, yeah, so they would be,
the same person, yeah,
Would be a good idea.
if that's how you hired them. So then they say that isn't how we hired the guy, just as a building inspector. So he doesn't look at anything else.
Well, he doesn't do that either. I'm just saying. Insane.
I think that was it.
All the notes in the Tracy.
Talked about this. That's what we find.
Can make it clear.
So just to help you out,
So just
Tracy, just to help you, under 320.
Yeah.
Inspections for your building inspector, erosion control inspections. Should performed concurrently with all other required construction inspections.
You name one.
And there it is, even though they give out that permit too.
Yeah. I just want.
So I mean, we gotta find out why they're not doing their job. Because it is right in there. They charge for it.
Point of order,
How much do you charge for that permit?
point of order.
Tracy, how much do you charge for? You charge for permit.
You need a permit for.
That's how you get it.
So then with, just to clarify, with these, consensus agreed on the parts that changed from the last meeting, this is the document that we would send to, or at least the shoreline section, we would send to the DNR for their preliminary review, before we hold the public hearing. Which could take, if we're comfortable with what we currently have, it would take place as soon as I sent it over. There's a cross sheet where we fill out to reference exactly where it is in the model versus in ours, but yeah, that would get sent over as soon as possible.
So then when it comes back for the public hearing, it's a done deal then though. Nothing changes after that. It's just a done deal. It's just saying to the public, here's our new ordinance.
No, I mean, it's definitely not. That's where the public hearing gets held. We would then have a document that says, this is what came back to us as maybe suggested changes or not. And then that's where the process the public hearing would get taken place. If during the public hearing, there's changes recommended for or against what's in that preliminary review, it could, move on to the next step at that point. But no, this preliminary review is not, this is the ordinance. This is our review of your ordinance, and where we see issues is here or not.
At least we would have an idea of what would or wouldn't be approved.
Yep.
Yeah,
To move it
yeah.
forward.
We haven't, and this is just new. We haven't done preliminary reviews for it before, so
Sure.
I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly.
It can change in the committee before the committee sends it to the board still. So it would be able, the public will have the opportunity to voice their opinion. Then you will have an opportunity to make amendments again. And then you'll advance it to the committee with or without recommendation, and then, or to the board.
Or it goes to the board.
And then the board can make amendments at that point as well. And then whatever gets passed, with or without amendments, and that gets sent to the DNR for certification.
Right.
So there's still,
Did we have any
Lots
from
of
the
that.
last time we had the public in? 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. Did we have any of the suggestions they had? Were they directly impacted in here?
As far as the request for like a wing wall and thing like that, I couldn't come up with pretty much as soon as you call something a wall, that's going to be considered a structure. So no, there's nothing that directly changed besides, I guess, removing the retaining wall definition altogether and having it be more of a administrative decision on what is a retaining wall, what isn't. But no, we didn't put specific language that may have been requested at the past meeting. It's more of a, let's take it out, or as of today, let's take it out and we'll administer it, depending on what is or isn't a retaining wall.
But it was brought up about having, or preliminary conversations. So landscapers had a chance to
Yeah.
be at the table, so that
Yeah.
even though that specific language isn't
Isn't it
there,
there?
it's,
Yeah.
it has been brought to the forefront as far as procedure. We redid the boathouse stuff that was discussed and that got redone.
The 5 to 10 foot setback, we left at 5.
That was, yeah, but that was.
That was one of the
before-
things from the last meeting.
Oh, was that the last? Okay.
Vertical,
Oh, yep.
And
Um,
20,000 square foot.
the 20,000 and 10.
And also even our additions or changes or updates to the credential to professional. I mean, that was
Yeah.
kind of discussed and then I feel like we kind of hammered.
Yeah,
So.
we did on that.
If we took the retaining wall out, the definition. And so the plan and mitigation plans are separate, which, you know, a little bit better yet. Otherwise, that's about what was brought up.
Yeah, thing to that.
Somebody talking to like a puppy or a kid.
Yeah, somebody is.
Background note is from Doug.
So the comment at the last meeting about requesting some way of a surveyor to be done in that situation,
Yes,
I looked in, I just think it's really tough for us to put something in our ordinance that would make another part of our ordinance or not follow another part of our ordinance. It's very, I think it's a difficult situation to put in there. I see his point, but I think the only way is variance to do that because you're dealing with two non-conforming and you're moving the line and they're still going to be non-conforming. And I think that should be decided on a record rather than just my decision for us putting it into the ordinance. Because then how do you decide where that line should go? Do you just say it has to split the buildings? Like Connell said, there may be situations where we can make one of those and they have a lot more options to do things. That's going to be between the property owners.
to make one non-conforming and make the other one conforming.
Yeah.
I just think there's so many variables.
Square footage and all the other
For
stuff.
us to do it administratively. I think it should go to the relief of the BOA and to, I mean.
Or at least it has to go through the surveyor, I would think too. I mean, we kind of did
Yeah,
that.
there's a process for that.
And that's where, I mean, I think that's the best place to start, in my opinion. And if it gets to the point where maybe, you know, if there's 10 that come in and the BOA approves all of them, that's the case, you know, those specific instances are like, okay, now we need to look at our ordinance, because if they're just all being approved, there's no need to have it as a
Yeah.
variance.
It's a variance.
And I mean, it maybe he's looking at it backwards, but I feel like I don't have a strong enough idea of what that language should say because we don't have any cases that have been heard by the BOA. So I think that's the best route for that.
Because you could create a non-conforming lot.
Right.
Out of that, with the lot line too far one way or another too. So there's a lot of.
Do
stuff
we
that-
get a lot that goes through the BOA for variances?
They're starting to pick up a little bit more, not a ton, the lot line or the minimum lot size thing was one that came up, but that got addressed like a year ago. Now I'm trying to think of what the last ones were, there's looking for relief to the ordinary high water mark.
Some
Yeah,
porches,
it's just, yeah, there's some. Most of them are
Porch in the
buildings, but
Sure.
different.
nothing, and I think that's on the work plan. I can summarize.
Yep.
I don't know what meeting that's at, but,
The next one.
okay.
Yeah, that the case is the BOA so that that's how we decide whether to take it out of there, leave it
So I
there.
can-
Yeah.
Update on what we've heard, and I don't know if the decisions get told at that too, or just kind of what was heard at the BOA.
Share BOA findings at the April meeting.
So the work plan says we're gonna have a 319 meeting. I'm not.
No.
Oh, that's right. You weren't gonna
Still
be.
on there
Yeah,
just
It's out
in
there
case.
just in case.
I
Oh,
asked last time and it
case.
was dependent
yeah.
on this meeting, so.
Kept it on just in case, but
Okay.
it's pretty clear that we won't be having that for me.
Yeah, right now, I don't think.
We are sharing, you just aren't.
It's gonna be in the country, right? Weren't you gonna be someplace in Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado.
Is it, am I up?
Nope.
Who's up?
Administrators update.
Oh, you're before me.
As soon as I'm called on by the chair.
Second, and where's my, I got to be next up.
Katie's gotta get it.
Sure, whatever number you are. 14, given.
14.
Really?
14.
I gotta go like this there. All right. So we went through this subdivision.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's hard to figure out watching the agenda or everything here, you admit that, but if I could ask a question about shoreline or subdivision quickly, could I still do that?
Yes.
under, and I heard Logan say this, but not today, but under standards and specifications, then you have the charts and it says residential 1 acre, and then it says hamlet. Then it goes down. If you turn the page, then there's another chart here that's in red, and it's shoreland, and it's been lined out.
9 and
Then
8.
down below on number 3, it says each lot shall have a minimum contiguous net project area of 30,000 square feet. I thought there was some comment that once you state a size of a parcel, it has to be, all parcels would be the same coming from the DNR. And I just wanted to discuss that, as if you look at all the lots on the lakes, the sizes that are currently there compared to 1 acre. I don't know, did I make that clear?
Yeah, yep, I think I see what you're saying. And this is where 30,000 square feet is in our shoreland ordinance, so it's not restricting the, in the subdivision ordinance, so it's not restricting the shoreland areas. So we can have this in our subdivision ordinance. And that's where I think we should cover it. And I think it is covered by when it says unless served by a public sewer system. So if somebody's doing a subdivision in the shoreland area and they're on a public sewer system, that's where they only have to have 20,000 square feet. So yes, it wouldn't make sense to require 30,000 square feet of project area. But anywhere outside of those, we have it where, you know, it has to be an acre in most of them. So then that's where we would require a 30,000, or this is old language. It's not anything new. But no, I think, does that clarify? I see exactly what you're bringing up, but I think by having the public sewer system still in there, that
Yes,
covers.
you do. It says, then it's red and then it's lined out. It says square feet, 20,000 square feet minimum of soil loading test rating of 05 or greater. Then it goes on to say public sewer system, but it doesn't really say 20,000 square feet for the, you can check this later. But my question is, it says each lot shall, and shouldn't we be putting in a more clear that that's in the shoreland area? It's under number 3. I've got all kinds of pages because I can't use your today's that Shabana sent out because I'm on the computer and I can't back up to that.
9.
Yeah.
Maybe but you can look at it later. It just says each lot shall have a minimum continuous net project of 30,000 square feet. And I'm just wondering if that shouldn't say in the shoreland area.
Yeah, I think we can definitely get this language to, because we can't reference the shoreland area in our subdivision directly, because then it should be in our shoreland ordinance, is from what language. So I think that's where it should be covered, but I can definitely look into the language to make sure it's reading the way, and I'm positive I'm understanding exactly what you're saying.
Okay, that's just fine. We'll move on then.
Yeah, one more.
So at the end of this, we were gonna jump to the administrator, but do we do by consensus, move the shoreline on then? That was by consensus? Yes. To get it reviewed? Okay.
Just as a preview.
Yes.
Right, yep.
Yeah, okay. Just so that we all know it's just.
So then we should
that's what
get
it is.
an official document back saying this is what needs to change.
Yeah.
If they have the.
So that we have, that, yeah.
2.3. I can't tell you how many times she told me that.
Me too.
14, administrators update.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we continue to watch sales tax. Although sales tax was was up in January, 87.6% from 2024. We're still riding that coattail. We're 10% above in February. However, the exact February sales tax is down from 2024, 30%. So although we're still showing a positive for the year, February sales tax was down. So We continue to watch executive orders coming out of Washington and how that's going to affect staff. Part of those measures we've started slowing down the hiring process for a 3-month pause on new hirings and justifications, just so we're watching what's happening with our funding and seeing where that's going. Working on our budget modeling to see how that's going to impact our budget. Continue to look at debt service and making sure we're on our bonding schedule as we look at the 2026 budget for our larger CIP projects that are coming forward. The largest one being the boilers, HVAC systems for the Justice Center building are 23 years old now. The replacement of those are estimated at $1.8 million. So that's probably our last really big, large one coming out of that. Medicaid's a big one we're watching right now and how that's going to impact services. 1 in 3 children are insured by Medicaid. 1 in 6 adults in Wisconsin are insured by Medicaid, and 1 in 3 births are covered by Medicaid. So we're watching those and seeing how that's going to affect the pass-through through the state, that 60-40 split. Currently, we're working on updating the financial policy. Some of that should be going to general government this month with our reports of what we spent for over $75,000. Also, Mr. Nelson's not here. I do apologize. I did not make that meeting with him on Monday, although I'm not sure I was needed there. However, I had to leave early that day due to my wife projectile vomiting and very sick. So that was more important than I felt in that meeting. So other than that, if you have questions, working on budgets already for 2026.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple questions. So, hiring, yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. Hiring, I'm just curious, is that a pause on hiring for, new positions or filling vacancies?
Any vacancy that's happening right now.
Any current vacancies?
thing.
Okay, so, all right.
Kind of looking at, and that's for every department.
Yeah, yep, thank you. And then just 1 in 3 children covered by Medicaid in Polk County or in the state of Wisconsin? Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Sarah, your division, how's it doing?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Speaking of the budget, with the governor's executive budget that was released, we have some information from Land Plus Water. There's some additional funding in the budget to support conservation staff. Now they're asking for some local support in different avenues. And sometimes there's budget resolutions to offer support, and there's some of those type of projects. Some feel good, but they are trying to kind of show that support. You'll have probably some more information before you at the April meeting to either offer support, issue letters. Of course, they're always encouraging you to reach out to your legislators. Currently, DADCAP, the money that we get from them is about $160,000 towards staff for land and water resources. With the governor's budget, it would almost double that. So we would obviously have some additional funds in the county, and that would potentially release other funds back to the general fund. So just some things, it's real money. Also, I have a sample resolution too from Greene County. Just so you know, the state takes quite a bit of our transfer fee from real estate transfer fees. I'm just going to read this really quick little snippet. The collection by counties of real estate transfer fee was mandated by the state of Wisconsin in 1969 and included a requirement that counties remit 50% of those transfer fees collected to the state. So 50% in 1969. In 1981, the state arbitrarily changed the transfer fee formula to now require counties to remit 80% of transfer fees. There is an effort now to scale back those to allow us as the county to retain more of those transfer fees. I believe, I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but Senator Rob Stasholt's office is the sponsor of the proposal. And I believe it changes the real estate transfer fee from 3% down to 2% per $10,000 of valuation. But then in addition, it goes from 80% down to 70% that the county, that goes to state, then to 60, and then finally back to 50%. So I think it's on a scale to try to that back. that resolution and sample resolution, I'll work with Chair O'Connell for several of these things that are coming through the state to see if that's something that you also want to bring before this committee in April. Other than that, we are, just to keep it brief, the county is obviously still under audit for 2024 financials, and looking at our budget calendar already, also paying attention to things that are happening at all the different levels of government. And we'll be looking at our fee schedule. And as we get into May and June, that's when you guys will start to get your first look at some of those projects as far as budget goes for 2026. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead.
Just one thing to add to my litigation update, Chair. If my recollection is correct, but we haven't done a tax deed taking in a long time. This is the committee that generally deals with that. Every county in the state has been sued in what they are, I believe, trying to deem a class action based upon they've sued the state of Wisconsin, all of the counties, and then a couple of municipalities as well, city Milwaukee. The point of the litigation is that certain jurisdictions may have retained a larger amount of the proceeds from tax deeded properties than they should have. I have a meeting with a number of other attorneys tomorrow where this litigation is going to be discussed. So it's preliminary information right now. I think we just got served 2 days ago. So I haven't had an opportunity to read all the way through what they're claiming. To my knowledge, there is no specific claim that Polk County itself has done anything wrong. They just are suing every single county. So I will give you further updates as I have more information. It's again preliminary now.
So that's part of Act 216?
Part of the
Act 216, that was what, 3 years ago? 3 or 4?
It certainly relates to that.
Okay,
Yes.
because we haven't taken any back since that act went through. Have
This lawsuit wants to go back 30 years,
They want to go
we?
back.
Back 30 years?
1986, correct?
Jeez,
That's what they want to do.
don't we only keep records for 5? They want to go back 30 years. They would
Good
bring
luck with that.
every county would go broke.
As I've told you before, anybody can sue for anything, make any claim. It's whether,
I guess they can.
whether or not it's
Oh my God. And there's limitations for
justifiable.
everything.
So just so it's on your radar, I'll give you more information next month.
Sure. Yay. That's a good one. All right, so tax deed listings, do we even look at them next month? It's on our work plan.
We haven't,
There isn't very many.
waiting to get
Any update on that?
kind of a solid direction. There are different counties that are doing different things. As of now, I do not have a specific plan on how to move forward with that. So
Do we know how much is sitting in there? Approximately.
how many properties are delinquent?
Well, and how much
Dollar
money that
amount.
we're paying to
Dollar
keep
amount.
going.
I'm not sure.
Can we maybe get that for an update?
Yeah,
Just how much is sitting there? Yeah.
Sure.
Because it was, when you go back and look, you know, we had $1 million sitting there for how long? And then all of a sudden we got it down to almost nothing,
Right. We had it down to like
Right.
65,000.
65,000. Now, people look at this loophole and now it's gonna go back up or something, but it's been pretty good, I think.
For the work plan too, I mean, there are going to be some of those budget advocacy items. So I don't know, I'll work with the clerk on how to list those on the agenda.
Budgetary items.
Budget advocacy.
What else is on there then for next
So
month?
what is and I've been asked this before, how many years can you go without paying your taxes before you get
Forever.
taken away?
A long time.
so we haven't done it since 2019 was the last year we did it, which was my first year here.
Yep.
My recollection of what we're allowed to do is I think they have to go 3 years of non-payment and then the 4th year we can start to enforce something like that.
And then we have a 90 days and then we have that. Yeah, so
There's a payment plan.
it gets stretched out. Because if it has,
Generally, what we would do is we would include all the properties that are delinquent that far behind.
Yeah.
And then they would be given opportunity to reach out to
their
the
heirs.
treasurer, right? To communicate, hey, okay, I'm willing to pay this amount and I want to get back on track and whatever. And then we might take them out of that particular litigation. And then we just proceed against people that either haven't reached out to us or aren't willing to come up with a plan or something like that. And then we go through the process for those. Anybody who's willing to work usually gets an opportunity to do so. And then we might put them on next year's if they aren't.
If they skip a
complying with
payment.
Their plan, right?
Somebody, they keep asking me, I'm like,
And then it's a question on the property too,
Yeah.
depending whether, what the property is, whether we want to take it as tax fee. If it was a brown site that we know is hazardous waste or something, we may want to stay clear of those and not.
But then we sold the dump for twice what we thought. So we did good there. Oh, yeah. The last time we
I
did it.
remember that, yeah.
We sold the dump site, so that was.
That was a whole thing.
We sold that one, all that property behind Menards.
Yes.
Now they have that truck driving school there that stays really busy and.
And that's sat for.
The implement place right next door in the frontage of.
Those were the two biggest.
Yeah.
Couple hundred
The last
thousand.
ones.
So,
Yeah.
So
That
the
was-
last big ones.
It was a real positive for the communities
Yeah.
that, so that was good.
yeah, then we got down to all the little slices and stuff to put into a corner that was just right of ways, yeah. All right. What else for the day? Do we have any public hearings that we know of yet? None?
No, there's still a couple that we've received, but I mean, kind of prematurely received. They don't have payment and I think they're waiting for on their end. So I mean,
Okay.
possibly, but nothing for sure.
Okay.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
me.
Opposed?
right.
You got one horse in there. One horse in there.
Huh?
You gotta go snow blowing. I just.
I don't have to. I got a notice. They were there. They plowed.